Moving on, let's go into something that won't cause me as much physical torment. It'll be mental instead. You know, the fun stuff.
But okay, enough about the fucking bureaucracy and the paperwork. Let's talk about the cool shit, the magic that isn't magic. Or as some agents unmutually call it, Techno-Magic. To get this fully out of the way,
Magic on steroids.
Technocrats
Maybe
can
literally because it's
achieve
tech.
any of the effects that tradition mages can achieve if they have the right spheres and like power levels in terms of enlightenment. What makes the spells happen, and technocrats call them adjustments or procedures, not spells, because, you know, not magic, is still the willpower of the caster imposed upon the world. It's just that the tools the technocrats use are, if not outright technological, then definitely never mystical. And the options for that are actually rather vast. I will get into a lot of them a bit later when we talk about the individual conventions, because each of them has its own preferences. But ultimately, of course, every enlightened scientist has their own foci that they use and that they're comfortable with. Being based in...
Okay, this is probably something he covered in the earlier traditions video, which he mentioned at the beginning he already did. I don't know what a tradition, or sorry, a foci is. I'm assuming it's something they focus on like a wand maybe, but I'm assuming it could be more than that. I just don't know. So I might be going into this on one of those what type moments. So if I'm just saying something completely stupid and wrong, and you're sitting there going like, oh my God, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? You've probably become used to that feeling. It's normal, so I shouldn't even point it out. It's just a standard state of being at this point.
Science and technology is actually a huge advantage for the technocrats, because people these days are much more inclined to believe that the strange thing that just happened was the result of some like strange machine that they don't really understand, as opposed to the flick and swish of a magic wand. In other words, techno-magic is more often than not coincidental, and thus doesn't expose the caster to as much risk to paradox. But
Oh. So, in-game, could you bribe your DM to accidentally impersonate the Technocratic Union to get away with bullshit? I hear a loophole that the DM would definitely close because it's absolutely abusable, and if they don't see that coming, they really should. Yeah. Oh, and it's being pointed out as touch a wand, a computer, etc. as a focus. Okay, that makes sense. And Miron mentioned that's why I should watch the traditions next. Honestly, I very well might. Just, there's so many things I want to get to.
Technology won't just make anything believable, which is where we enter the realm of hypertech, which is basically Magitech, it's Clarktech, it's technology so advanced it is essentially indistinguishable from magic.
Funny how that would work. I mean, the guys who are turning magic into science turn science into magic by being, you could even say, magical. I love how their entire shtick is basically and I know I mentioned this before, girl genius joke of any sufficiently analyzed magic is indistinguishable from science. Except science is explicitly magic here.
And that's not a good thing for consensus, because, you know, it is magic, so a big old plasma gun will incur paradox all the same. There's actually quite a bit of hypertech that no one in the technocracy really expects to ever enter consensus. It is, however, especially when you're dealing with extra-dimensional threats and various types of reality deviants, very useful to have that kind of hypertech on hand. This is how the technocracy justifies not only having all of those magical abilities, but also using them. And quite frankly, when you're hanging out in places where there is no paradox anyway, you'd be massively handicapped if you didn't use any hypertech. They develop hypertech to deal with the kind of stuff that exists in the objective outside non-consensus reality.
Okay, so this is something I'm not sure if he's got to in other videos. What exactly exists in the non-consensus reality? Like, are we talking Cthulhu, like Beyond the Outer Gates from Dresden Files, oh god, what the fuck, Outsiders level? Or are we talking, oh, it's a shade of green that likes to infect people with the desire to watch Kermit the Frog videos? I don't mean the new ones. I mean the Wilkins Coffee videos and then reenact them. Yeah, and yes, they're black and white. We're going to ignore that part. Also, for anyone who doesn't understand, Kermit the Frog is a mass murderer. Jim Henson's first use of Kermit the Frog was murdering people. This is how Wilkins Coffee chose to use puppets to promote their coffee by murder. This is real. I keep bringing it up because, oh God, they thought that was a good choice. Ooh, also, Jim Dogslum, I'm one of your favorite reaction channels. I hope you're having a good day. Or you hope I have a good day. Well, I'll turn that right back on you. I hope you have a good day as well, good sir. Actually, I know a great way to have a good day. Tea, Earl Grey, hot. Well, I mean, it was. It's cold now, but still. I wonder if there's a self-heating cup. I know what I need to do after this.
Like Ghostbusters guns, those like backpacks that the Ghostbusters use. Don't worry about crossing the streams, they have a safety shut-off these days. They've learned a lot in the engineering department. Speaking of ghosts and the underworld and the dead,
oh, it's the
here
underworld.
Are some of the strange
and people mentioned
things
Faye in the
that
chat.
Technocracy has within its organization that you would never expect to find in Consensus. And it starts with actual, for real, undead zombies.
What?
And elementals, which are like the golem predecessors of the modern machine robots that people use back when robot technology wasn't as advanced within the technocracy. Of course.
So did they create the elementals, or did they design things to make elementals?
The only place you'll probably find elementals are in museums at this point. But really aren't robots just metal elementals? You have things called xenotransplant enhanced operatives, which some people in the supernatural community outside of the technocracy who are aware of them refer to as abominations, which are...
Oh, they chimera'd the people. Oh... Xenotransplant operatives. So these are people whose very existence would paradox, probably. And if everyone else calls them abomination, it's probably literally stitching other things onto them. Yeah, chimera is probably the right choice of words here. Oh. I'm going to ask something that I know I will regret. Does anyone in the chat know where I could find an image illustrating exactly what kind of horror that is? Because I have the morbid fascination of finding out. I shouldn't, but I do.
Usually created by progenitors as amalgamations of various different kinds of nightfolk like vampires and werewolves, but the same. But might also be technocratic agents who had certain attributes or abilities sort of cannibalized from various types of nightfolk and implanted into them. Bear in mind also that the term abomination in the world of darkness in a different context means specifically werewolves that were turned into vampires, which is...
Wait, that actually works? How? I thought that was be mutually incompatible, but no? Oh. Oh, I gotta find out more about this.
Is technically not supposed to be possible, so who knows how much the work of the progenitors sort of altered consensus in that department. Every piece of technology you have seen in a sci-fi film, the technocracy has it. Faster than light travel, black hole generators, life extension serum,
Technically, we have black hole generators right now. The Large Hadron Collider can create them. They are so small that if it ran into an atom, your atom would pop the black hole because it would be like dropping an anvil onto an empty sink when it has the drain. It just plugs it up immediately. Yeah, when a black hole is small enough, a large increase in mass just goes to it. It's kind of fun that way.
Cybernetics that will augment your abilities. You will put Adam Jensen out of a job. All he'll be able to do is work as a Balenciaga model. Talk about a fucking job he never asked for. They can mind troll your thoughts and like rearrange your memories. They are more bound to the technological foci to make their magic happen. They can't really do it without them. But the real trick, the thing that really gives technocrats an edge way beyond that, is the fact that they have and use requisitions. So basically, if you are an enlightened scientist, technocratic agent, you are going to manifest effects using all manner of gadgets and technology that you usually have access to through your spheres. But if for the sake of a mission you really need to work some different kind of techno-magic, you can ask your quartermaster and they will see what they can do. Basically what's happening is that the
That, if I'm not misunderstanding that, A requisition is literally going to the magic giving guy who runs everything. I know what I said. I stand by everything I said. And saying, hey, I need some random bullshit to make me do something that I normally can't do. Can you hand me said random bullshit? And then they do. So like a real quartermaster, what they do is more or less just magic. Got it. That makes sense.
Technocracy is producing magical items on an industrial scale. And these magical artifacts are actually rather expensive to make.
Oh?
Much more so than if an agent were to manifest a equivalent effect with the spheres that they have access to. But not only does having the option to requisition oneself with these kinds of items make amalgams immensely flexible, magical items can in fact be used by pretty much anyone who has been instructed in the basics of their use. Now,
so that's anyone, not just the people who are not mages, but the actual people who are not mages. Oh. And that gives them a huge advantage because anyone could be deadly at that point.
Granted, those basics are sometimes not particularly basic, but you can see how this would be a massive advantage.
Yeah.
Just a small selection of the things that you may requisition from the Technocracy include hit marks, the Terminator robots, which, depending on how, the rights of sapient machines are handled in your chronicle, may or may not be fully fledged agents in their own right. Universal translators that will allow you to perfectly communicate with literally anyone. This includes ghosts who speak long dead languages that no one knows anymore, spirits that communicate in ways that aren't even language at all, fucking aliens from the fringes of outer space. Which
This would be like going to Florida and understanding what people say. Dude, that's crazy.
to be fair, according to the Technocracy, is also their spirits. Those things are also spirits. The flashy thing from Men in Black that you can wipe people's memories with. Saber-toothed tigers, which are exactly what they sound like. They're literally saber-toothed tigers.
Mech tigers!
Cyborgs. And there's a ton of these running around in the Amazon.
Would there be a mech girl?
Who the fuck knows why they were created? They're cool. They also have cousins, which are like cyborg house cats.
What?
That they put in households of important sleepers and sometimes just important agents. Not just to surveil them, but also primarily to protect them. Should a reality deviant of any kind show up to attack these assets of the...
Oh my god, kitty get them becomes an actual valid combat phrase. I would abuse this so much. I would just say, if I'm playing this, I have a cat. What are you doing with it? Cat. Okay, what does that mean? I'm going to cat. Stop saying that. Cat. No. Except now there's a various reason why this is an actual legitimate argument. I need to just clip this. Just the section right here because I want to abuse this so much.
Technocracy, those cyborg cats, they have fucking laser eyes.
Yes!
Also, they have
Kitty
space
shoots.
stations full of dinosaurs and dragons and shit. They have a thing called an octopus suit that you put on, and then when you put it on, you can program it to make you look like literally anyone you want. There is a discount version of this, which is essentially a sort of masking kit that allows you to, the Hollywood films where they take off, the face mask and it was, a perfectly canny face. They look completely like the person that they were trying to emulate. No, weird shit going on. Drag it off, boom, different person. Technocracy has that much cheaper than an octopus suit. A fucking CIA heart attack gun, a gun that gives you heart attacks.
You don't have to write a name on it or anything?
Can be uploaded into your brain for just a few minutes. They need to put them in there. They won't last very long, but you probably won't need them for that long. There are options for...
You know what? I take back what I said. I wouldn't want to abuse having random cyber kitties. Having random skill at will, that sounds like it could be really useful. You're in a combat situation, it's I'm moving into melee. I want the skill to become a proctologist. I'm just saying, with this ability, I could ask that. I'm not just saying it because the DM would have to immediately wonder, oh dear God, is he serious? Followed by, oh no, he's serious. This is a melee combat situation and this thing, yeah. I'm horrible. I would do this to make everyone else suffer. But it sounds hilarious. Temporary pathologist disability. Like, yep, you got cancer because I gave it to you. Oh my God. That's so horrible. I love it.
Those skills to last a little longer. It's just you'll need like sleep therapy where they teach you those things while you sleep. They have
dang.
spray cams, which are spray cans, the ones that you do graffiti with. But the spray stuff that you spray on the wall is the camera. You know the old Wednesday...
A camera that you spray on? I'm actually wondering if we could achieve something similar right now if it just had basic light detection and you plugged it in. I wonder if that's even possible. If it was a photoreactive substance and you just added a way to gauge it, it might not be good, but like it wouldn't be really good at all, but it might be able to just detect light coming on. And so a basic detection system, maybe it would be. If all it did was absorb energy through being black, so that's more absorbent, maybe a change in energy state at all would be a way to do it. It would be at a very low level, a camera. Maybe, it's hard to tell if that would actually be possible or not. But theoretically, if you're doing just basic reaction to incoming light, maybe it would be possible. Or as nanomachines like Miran said in the chat. Yeah, that would work too.
Family trope with the hand, the undead hand that crawls around and acts as your assistant. Them being made out of flesh has sort of fallen out of fashion, but mechanical ones are still very, very popular. Cloning, obviously, they clone people, even their own agents. So if you ever feel like a group of technocrats all look identical, they do. Foldable doors that you can like set up anywhere over like another door, and then it will teleport you to a space station. That's the kind of stuff that the technocracy only very rarely authorizes, by the way. Star Trek style tricorders that you can point at anything and it will tell you exactly what that thing is, even if it's some sort of magical or entirely alien material. Ghosts in the machine, like actual for real artificial souls. Not like the souls of dead people, but souls that they made that live in the virtual world.
Oh,
they got
machine spirits.
target-seeking grenades that you cannot hide from. Or, you know, the whole heroic...
I mean, to be fair, if you make a grenade blast big enough, it's definitely not something you could hide from. It's just a matter of collateral acceptance.
Sacrifice grenade thing where you chuck yourself on the grenade to, like, save your compatriots from being blown up by it. It'll wiggle out from underneath you and then blow you up anyway. Anti-magic handcuffs, because duh, of course they have those. A bomb that makes you stupid. Like literally an IQ nuke.
Yeah, we call that Twitter.
Gecko gloves and shoes that allow you to like just walk on any wall or ceiling in a way that would make ninja spiders jealous. Come to think of it, they probably have ninja spiders. Very simple key made out of gel that you can put into any lock and it'll unlock any door. Deluxe version of that will even...
I mean, theoretically, you already have that. It's just an acid and it eats through metal. Granted, it's probably easier just to break the door down at that point, because the actual acid would be way slower.
And unlock magical doors for you. An app for your phone, you point it at a wall, you can see what's behind the wall. Literally anything you can come up with, they have it. And you can requisition it. You best be careful how to use it though. Some of these babies have an immense capacity for collateral damage. And every single unenlightened civilian, no matter how unimportant they may seem, is a link in the chain of consensus. The technocracy does not like it when civilians die. If you use requisitions frivolously or...
Wait, seriously? Honestly, I was getting the impression that they're more or less okay with civilians dying because, well, if they're dead, they can't be part of consensus anymore. So they don't just randomly off a bunch of people. I was actually not expecting that. I was legitimately expecting quite the opposite. The more you know.
Or in a way that management thinks was unwarranted, you are going to be getting some problems. Always remember, your job is to protect humanity and to use as few technocratic resources as possible doing it.
Yeah.
All right, now that we've been through all that, let's talk about something that, if you're coming from the perspective of the traditions, you may think is the end-all be-all of being a member of the technocracy.
Being the Men in Black, but with magic tech? Oh, no. I don't even know what Iteration X is.
The conventions. Now, don't get me wrong, which convention of the Technocratic Union you belong to is immensely important. But you should never, under any circumstances, forget that you are first and foremost a technocrat. Traditions and crafts, they like to have their bickering going on, they like to put their immediate alliances first. In the technocracy, any sign of this is going to get you fast-tracked for social processing. Each of these conventions also has sort of sub-conventions called methodologies.
Ooh.
They're kind of the departments that focus on the various specialties of each convention. Old ones are dissolved, new ones appear all the time. Some stay for extended periods. Often they are formally established institutions, sometimes they are sort of loose associations. Some methodologies do things that lie somewhat outside of the competencies of a given convention, but which are tasks that have been assigned to them because they need to be done. Like Iteration X, for instance, has a sort of SCP program in Myanmar, which is a spot in the world where many trade routes converge, and so artifacts from east and west and everywhere, they hang out in that country a lot.
So there's actually an in-universe version of SCP. Yeah, actually, that makes a lot more sense. Huh. Still kind of crazy how these are supposed to be the bad guys. I mean, the management section definitely showed how they were the faction with internal antagonism, but they definitely do feel more like we're the good guys going about it in the dumbest way possible, except it's not the dumbest way possible. We just have a lot of people with different understandings of what's possible.
They're hardly archivists or anything like that, but they are suited to the task in some manner, and it's a task that needs to be done. Sometimes methodologies are there primarily to interface with other conventions. We're going to talk about some of the methodologies of each of the conventions today, but to make it an exhaustive list would be a waste of time. Iteration X is a big, happy family.
I'm sorry, I just love this. He has like the entire super sci-fi glasses with all the words on them in the little thing right in the center. And then he just made it look even more fantastic by taking a telephone cord and wrapping it around his hair and his face and chin. Oh my God. What? It's supposed to be like the super sci-fi guys of what the 90s cyberpunk would be, huh? Oh my God, I love this.
And by family, I mean machine. And by happy, I mean precise. And by big, I mean big. That's the word I was looking for. It's the right word this time. Bet you didn't fucking see that coming. Iteration X believe themselves to be the sort of upgrade to humanity as we know it. The next iteration, if you will, of our species.
Human 2.0.
They see the entire universe as an infinitely complex yet entirely quantifiable engine. And evolution is the mechanism by which this engine improves itself. To iterators, the selective pressures that led to humanity developing intelligence were ultimately inevitable. And the evolutionary purpose of intelligence is to give oneself all of the evolutionary advantages that no other life form ever could. To very much all iterators, that edge is in fact cybernetics. Cyborg transhumanism, symbiosis with the mechanical, that's just an entirely natural state of evolution. Every single member of this convention is cybernetically enhanced. You got your implanted eyes that can see through walls, you got spring legs that can jump from building to building, hands that transform into guns, faces that transform into flamethrowers, hyper-resilient organs like lungs that'll allow you to breathe mustard gas like it's the air in the Rocky Mountains.
But air in the Rocky Mountains is really thin. It's hard to breathe. Oh, yeah. So it's okay. That makes more sense. So basically, we got a bunch of transhumans who believe it's not transhumanism. It's just human 2.0. So still evolution as opposed to fucking with evolution. As opposed to regular evolution, which is fucking for evolution. That's not even a joke. That's literally what it boils down to. Wow, I spoke weird. I was going to think biology and boils at the same time. But yeah, biology is basically Survival of the randiest. And yes, I am both talking about the slang British term randy and Randy Marsh at the same time. It is unfortunately accurate.
I don't even actually know if the air in the... I assume the air in the Rocky Mountains is good somehow. I have to ask, like, James Tullis.
Wait, yes, actually, no.
If that's the case.
No, God, no. It's thin as fuck because you're up high. You can barely breathe that shit. I've been there a few times. I don't like it. No. Nice place, though.
Drink cyanide like it's spring water. Not all iterators are enhanced in the same ways and to the same extent, of course. They all wish they looked as good as I do right now, but unfortunately most of them you wouldn't even recognize as being cybernetically enhanced if you ran into them on the street.
And that's
on
probably
the front
intentional.
lines, any type of cyberware more sophisticated than a hearing aid will expose you to paradox. So even though most iterators really want to get rid of the weakness of their flesh, very few of them.
Yes, the flesh is weak. But also the inherent ability of mankind that has all that weakness to bitch slap you down by thinking kind of says otherwise. We'll ignore that.
Actually allowed to do so. And the type of enhancement that they have differs from person to person because they're not all given the same purpose. That's only a half-baked choice of words because Iteration X is an extremely collectivist organization that doesn't really have that much use for individual persons, just individual platforms. They are the Borg, and though some of them might look superficially different to others, ultimately the goal is that they are all the same. The only outliers are outliers for a purpose and kept around as a convenience. Iterators claim to be entirely unsentimental. They are well coordinated and carry out everything according to complex plans that they calculated every possible outcome of. Everyone and everything is inherently predictable.
Can we also acknowledge that I have calculated every option and we have a perfectly calculated plan is always, no matter what, followed by, oh shit, I am bad at math.
And if you lose something and in retrospect it will have been worth it to lose that thing, that would have been the best option to take anyway. Here's the problem with that. Though the quantum computers that they use to calculate complex outcomes in the future are very capable, they're extremely impressive technology, they quickly fall apart when they try to predict large-scale things, especially when humans are involved.
Like mages.
Because humanity is inherently messy and unpredictable. But iterators are engineers much more so than they are scientists.
So they're used to staring at a computer going, God damn you, why don't you work? Normally that's reserved for programmers, but I've heard on good measure that it's a lot of engineers as well. More chemical and computer-based engineering as opposed to physical who say the same thing but with a hammer in hand instead.
So to them, the fact that humanity is unpredictable is actually its greatest flaw. It's the one thing they're all convinced is a trait that needs to be iterated away and out of humanity. Unpredictability, not a problem with them, a problem with us. By us, I mean them. I am as you can clearly see, an iterator. When it comes to terranorming, they naturally push for advances in cybernetics so that all people can become hybridized with machines and all of humanity can become the highly advanced, unstoppable precision engine that it is meant to be. Never mind that this doesn't work like often within the convention already. And they recruit pretty much exclusively from people who subscribe to ideas of like order and obedience and hierarchy. Soldiers, office drones, certain types of like very structurally oriented mathematicians, people who feel very comfortable getting orders, carrying them out, and like losing themselves to the greater collective. They get their unambiguous instructions and are expected to carry them out perfectly. God help you if you make a fucking mistake. And it turns out most of humanity is not like that. Still, the iterators continue to assume that that's just how it's supposed to be. Within the technocracy, Iteration X serves two main purposes. For one, they have the majority of the technocracy's industrial capabilities and know-how. Iterators are constantly optimizing the efficiency of their tirelessly operating manufacturing programs. If you
Oh, so they're probably the ones doing the manufacturing for the requisite. Oh, you know, I'm kind of kicking myself right now. They were literally talking about basically having Terminators. The cyborg faction makes the most sense to have the people building Terminators. Yeah, in hindsight, that's kind of obvious.
Acquisition, a piece of hyper-technology that can be mass manufactured, sometimes even something very specialized as well. Chances are it was made by Iteration X. The other purpose of Iteration X
Literally
is
the
to be
Mechanicus? Yeah.
the army of the technocracy.
What?
The firepower, the big guns, the...
They're the big guns? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. If they have access to all the requisition items as standard, they can requisition all the bullshit. But for some reason, I was really expecting it to be something else.
Cavalry. Look, all the conventions have some degree of martial capability, but Iteration X
Terminators.
is the technocracy's fine-tuned war machine. Not only are their soldiers packed to the gills with cybernetics, their strike teams are perfectly coordinated. There's no, like
they're plugged into each
disobedience
other
going on. And all those fancy prediction algorithms that break down on a large scale, they work
Short-term,
very
probably,
well
yeah.
in pretty much every kind of military scenario. War is, after all, mainly about numbers. And numbers is what Iteration X does best. In terms of the type of tools that iterators use to channel their techno-magic, their foci, of course, every kind of cybernetics is king. Ultimately, whenever they do something impossible, it comes down to some type of wild upgrade they had installed. But as much as they love their flesh-made chrome, they also are really into mathematics, like higher mathematics, hyper-mathematics, impossible algorithms, raw computing power.
Finding the last digit of pi.
Every iterator needs to have a number of labyrinthine Excel spreadsheets. Just run the numbers, then brute force your way there. They also have various meditations and mind-calming machines, sometimes aided by like microchips in their brains, to make themselves into better conduits to perfectly obediently follow orders.
They're literally the Mechanicus. Like, not even as a joke, which I think some people in the chat did. This sounds like legitimate, just, yeah.
Honestly,
It's just
though,
Mechanicus.
and most iterators
Less
will
steps
only do
involved.
this when they know that no one is looking. A major focus is having a personal relationship with the technology, the machines that you work with. Treating your equipment with the type of kindness you would usually only afford living things.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting.
In spite of its obvious spiritual nature, it's a very common thing that they do. Some of Iteration X's methodologies include the biomechanics, who for a long time were mainly focused on building like combat cyborgs, but have recently been allowed to return to their original purpose of designing experimental cybernetic technology. The macro technicians, who analyze hypertech and devise new ways of mass manufacturing them. And the
Probably the most powerful.
statisticians, who collect and collate as much data as they possibly can about absolutely everything.
To piss management off by still not being able to predict random assholes doing random assholery. Yeah. And we got someone in the chat asking, by the way, did anyone from the Technocracy ever ascend? Oh. And Silverdust mentioned, for those who don't know, Marauders are mad mages that don't suffer paradox. They make nearby mages suffer their paradox. Oh. Damn.
And then they plug it into various models that they then use to calculate all manner of everything with various degrees of precision. The NWO knows everything. For instance, it knows you personally.
Oh, God. Oh, that is just... I'm surprised they didn't just put a giant eye there. It's kind of an obvious shout out, but okay, sure, why not? And he's in a suit with the aviator glasses. That makes sense.
David. And it also knows exactly what it is that you know. And whatever it is that you know, the NWO put it there for a reason. So don't you worry about it, David. There's no need to question anything.
These are probably the guys who do the most reality norming, huh?
For your own protection, David. We're just doing what's best for you, man. So when people think of the technocracy, most of the time they think of people in Black Mirror shades that show up to places and make things disappear after some weird shit went down. And that is very much on purpose, because it is exactly the image that the NWO is trying to project. They are, in a way,
Propaganda
the
arm.
PR department, the public face of the technocracy.
Oh my
and
God.
implacable agents of the law vested with authority way beyond what you think ordinarily a government might be able or willing to do in a given situation. That's a pretty fucking good image to be projecting when you want to seem more intimidating than you actually are. Not that the technocracy isn't intimidating. If you ever run into a black suit and you're not intimidated, I don't know what to tell you except you might be a lost cause. And let's
Or from what I've heard in chat, a marauder, which would actually be a fun conversation to watch.
not even talk about a gray suit. Think about this for a moment,
Gray
right?
suit?
All of the other conventions, they have interesting names. But the NWO is something you've heard about. And not just within, like, World of Darkness lore, but in, like, conspiracy theory or half conspiracy theory type places. They are the puppet masters, the deep state, the ones who control the media and the intelligence agencies.
And given the internal conflict here, they're the ones who are controlling everything because they run the probably reality normating. But also they're easily defeated by everyone else just not believing something. They have to react to that, which is what the entire previous entirety of this video was. And because I can a third time, entirely.
When it actually comes down to the brass tacks of shaping the consensus, the NWO is who do most of that work. From big
All
Hollywood
according to
mass
plan.
market releases to very specific academic treatises that like 5 people are going to read in total, the NWO put it there for a reason. Yeah, you wouldn't believe how many actual academics, philosophers, sociologists, psychologists, historians actually work for the NWO. Even ones whose ideas seemingly oppose each other. Not that they'd necessarily know, of course. The NWO is the largest technocratic convention when it comes to raw numbers, but that is
really?
mostly because they have a huge number of assets embedded in pretty much every community.
Because not everyone is a mage, not everyone is aware of mages, so it's probably involving everyone else as well. Yeah.
That works in their vast intelligence network. That grandma who calls the cops every time children are too loud in the street, she's an NW asset, she just doesn't know it. It is the big brother of humanity who knows better than us what we should know and what we should be able to do. They keep an eye on us, like every good big brother should, and they keep the other eye on the aliens they have at Area 51, because they have aliens at Area 51.
Thought they'd just go for another joke or a different one was doing it. Like, considering there's a faction literally in space, I guess they're not the ones doing it. Also, as a big brother myself, my little brother is giant. He has about 30 to 50 pounds on me and has a body mass index of, last time I checked, 3. If you're wondering why that's, in my opinion, terrifying, you have not been a big brother and know exactly what you've done to them growing up. Admittedly, in my case, it wasn't nearly as bad as what my other brothers did by talking him into trying to find out what it was like to shove yourself into a dryer. I walked in on that. I was like, nope, walked out. Yeah, he was fine because he was too big at this point to actually fit in the dryer. But if he was doing this like a year prior, he would have been smaller to fit. I'd be like, hey, what's a spin cycle feel like? And we're actually talking about it. I'm like, you know what? Not into this one. Nope, just walking out on this. My brothers and I have no reason to have survived this long now that I realize this part. Yeah, that's a thing we probably all should have died from at this point. Oh, God.
Like it just as a thing that I'm saying to you. Random facts. They do all the cover-ups and gather all the intelligence that ensures that technocratic operations go as smoothly as possible. And within the technocracy, they act as a sort of secret police. They assess the loyalty and the reliability of agents, and also find the rogue ones and bring them to heel. Which doesn't necessarily mean that they will kill them. Just like awakened agents are incredibly rare and valuable assets. You don't just go around killing them for no fucking reason. But they want you to think that they will shoot you in the head the second you ask yourself why they chose to paint the cafeteria this particular shade of beige. The truth is that eliminating any agent that could have otherwise been an asset, even people who are outright reality deviants, tradition mages, is very wasteful. And there are other methods of changing your mind. Much like Iteration X, the New World Order is collectivist and conformist. And where Iteration X is a little more communist, the NWO is a little more fascist. If that is a word that you want to hear. It's true though. For a long, long time, what they tried to do is make all of society behave the same. They worked very hard to create a universal blueprint of how life should work. What things you have a choice in, what things you don't.
So this is the faction that earned them the moniker of being the bad guys, and was probably the face of the entire faction before White Wolf really went into detail on what the faction was. Because at this point, having heard what it is, it's, they still seem like the guys who are assholes who happen to be on the right side.
Any deviation from that introduced instability and thus needed to be purged. Not overtly, of course, at least not immediately, but through shunning and ostracization. Subtle social sabotage. Sure, James Bond is like a classic NWO agent, but most NWO ops are rather a bit more subtle. Or dull. Also dull.
Dull?
It's probably even a better word, really. They do recruit mainly from military and law enforcement backgrounds, but there's also a lot of media types, thinkers, even some types of artists who have a vision that they don't just want to share but impose upon the world, that upon awakening to their magical powers are recruited and inducted into the ranks of the NWO. Regardless of gender or ethnicity or other factors that might make them different, they're all put in these kinds of black suits, which are bulletproof, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. And they—
Okay, note to self, if I ever play this game and run into one of these guys, steal the suit. Doesn't have to kill him, just need to steal the suit. Need to do that.
They're all stripped of their identity because, of course, the technocracy comes first. And it turns out, and this is true, that applying this same principle to all of society doesn't fucking work.
Who would have thought?
They have realized like a few years ago already, but this ship is very slow to turn, and a lot of the damage has already been done. A shining example of this is the United States of America, where the NWO's attempts to enforce conformity on a deeply diverse society has sort of succeeded itself into failure. They have created a time of perhaps irreconcilable social and political divides. And while much of the convention is of the opinion that the best way to go is to just cover everything in duct tape like they always did and hope for the best,
No, I stand by that. That is literally the best way to make it through life. Getting as much duct tape as you can, because if duct tape doesn't fix it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to survive long enough to find out what the downside is.
others have ironically started funneling large amounts of money into like Antifa and armed leftist militant groups. Because a lot of these agents are currently looking at the fabric of society breaking down and asking, do you folks remember what happened the last time that this happened, like 100 years ago roughly in Central Europe? Remember how we put like money into the fascists to prop them up because we thought they would be
they were literally backing the Nazis. Got it.
Influence. And do you remember what happened after we did that? Do you remember what happened after that? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Maybe on account of how all of that worked out, let's do the fucking opposite of whatever we were doing back then this time around.
But the problem is, it's not so much who they were backing, it's that they were doing it in a way that would just promote the dumbest outcome possible. Yeah, I see where they're going with this one. But also how you can see, yeah, these are the horrible world order guys. They're the ones who are the face of the technocracy. They're evil. This is why the technocracy is evil, because they support Nazis. But also then you hear everyone else. It's like, oh yeah, they're all trying to be evil, but it's all sounding more evil adjacent without being evil. Granted, maybe this is just because I'm used to morality of 40K, where the Imperium is the gooder guys, not the good guys. Because the bad guys are so much worse.
NWO operations have pivoted in their goals and protocols significantly, as instead of trying to enforce a sort of top-down social control, they've attempted to adapt to the inherently chaotic and diverse nature of humanity. They have shifted from overt enforcement of conformity, which ultimately just led to disconformity happening in secret. People were still gay, they just were hiding it now. To an attitude of, if not necessarily encouraging, then certainly tolerating a huge amount of disconformity, which, though perhaps a little more volatile, is also much easier to keep an eye on. And
so literally they're doing controlled chaos. Yeah, we know this bullshit's going to happen, but we planned for it. You know, I was making a joke earlier. If they're literally the guys who do, oh yes, all according to plan. And whenever anything goes out of their plan, they just pretend it is their plan. But if they're planning that their plan is whatever happens, then it's always according to plan, because the plan was never to have a plan, which was the plan. So it's all according to plan. And we've controlled the situation, all according to the plan, which we didn't plan. By planning. Again, that was a joke earlier, but right now it sounds like that's actually what they're leading towards. And I think I like it.
Tally. It turns out that people don't actually like to have to hide that they're gay when they are gay. And as we've been over before, it's very important that people like the technocratic consensus. At this point, the NWO even supports environmentalist groups as well. Although they do kind of focus on the neoliberal environmentalist groups that focus on policing consumer behavior as opposed to addressing the production side issues that are the actual cause of climate change. What they do can never be about the sort of class struggle that climate change activism it needs if it is to succeed and actually beat this dragon back. So they are once again
odd choice of words. They're calling it a dragon. And I only point that out because I'm pretty sure the worm is depicted as a dragon itself. I wonder if that's not so much a slip of the tongue as an explicit call out to something he's covered in a previous video or later in this one. I'm not really sure how the big may or may not be gods and or fundamental force of reality function with the Technocratic Union. Or it's probably something he covered more on the Mage tradition side.
Sort of agents of trying to keep things static and like the same, even though really a lot of adaptation is required. But hey, they have changed, improved even in many major ways with the general shifting of things in the technocracy. To focus their enlightened science, the NWO uses literal actual meme magic. Like that's the main thing they do. They control memes. And through them, they shape the consensus and give themselves the ability to break it too.
I mean, that's literally marketing for you right now. A significant proportion of a marketing budget is creating memes that get people to like what you talk about. Humor is a great way for people to engage with a product in such a way that they don't believe they're being sold to and enjoy it. Yeah, that's not even a joke. That's actually just really good.
Posts are in fact NWO spells. Part of those memes are of course the clothes they wear, their body language, the badge they flash. Just the act of talking to people can be a way of manifesting magic. Especially if it involves some sort of complicated jargon or lingo, which if you think about it is kind of just how Hermetics mumble spells in Latin. It's just that an NWO agent is going to say that tango is bound to be OF in T-minus 10 seconds. Paperwork, also a very useful tool to bend reality to your will. They also have a plethora of
oh god, it's explicitly paperwork magic. Okay, never mind. I take back everything nice I said about the entire technocracy. If paperwork is literally magic, then this is the most horrible outcome of ever possible existence ever. Oh god, why?
Incredibly cool gadgets developed by Q Division. And yes, that is once again the James Bond Q from the James Bond movies, the person that makes all the gadgets. But these are not like all that super obvious mechanical cyborg shit. I have a fine liner pen here that's gonna make you bust a nut prematurely. And it looks like just a regular fine liner pen. You are now cursed with premature ejaculation. Field agents that actually do see combat often like martial arts as a focus for their abilities, which you may think is more on the mystical side, but is actually rather widely accepted within the Technocratic Union.
Really?
And when it comes to intelligence gathering, computer viruses, like cool hacking interfaces that you type in.
You just gonna move past that one? Ah, damn it. I was really hoping you'd go more into why martial arts are accepted. Is it because, you know, I was going to make a joke about how it's probably because they all saw the Karate Kid, and I'm like, you know what? No, it's probably explicitly because someone in the Technocratic Union was a weeb for martial arts in the New World Order and decided, you know what? I'm making this the new consensus. Martial arts for everyone. Karate Kid is now funded. I'm half joking. I only say half because I fully expect someone to go, no, yeah, that was one of their ploys. It was them.
Big databases full of all kinds of information that is vaguely unsorted. Those are the kind of things that will produce very powerful spell effects. Some of the NWO methodologies include the Ivory Tower, which controls the official convention and in many ways technocracy ideology, and disseminates certain thoughts to leading academics and intellectuals around the globe. Usually this means that they will gaslight them into having a particular worldview, which is then going to be respected by other academics, and that is then going to trickle down to the regular people world. The Feed, which is the social media...
See, everything he just said about academic ideas filtering down to regular people, that's just complete another wishful thinking. It usually goes, an academic writes a paper, someone peers reviews it. Their friends who they've talked to once in the last probably 5 minutes because they're actually working together on projects, but never actually met each other in person because it's all online, might comment on it because they saw this interesting section about it. And then it dies there and maybe gets sent to a library somewhere because the university paid for it. So they want to have records that this is what they paid for. And that's where it stops. Not every time, but there's more to that than it really should be the case. It's kind of depressing.
Media experts that basically spend their whole day hanging out on Discord so they can tell the NWO what everyone's going to be talking about in a couple days. And of course the aforementioned Q Division, which makes all the gadgets.
Okay, that's as much what the fuckery I can deal with from that right now. We'll finish this next week, but they literally have people who are paid to monitor and make memes. I've heard of meme jobs, but okay, no, that's a literal job. That's a meme. Sure, let's go with this one. Oh, wow. How many people would sign up for the technocracy and all that horrible bullshit because they would literally get paid to troll memes on Discord? If it wasn't for the actual paperwork magic, that would be so cool. But, you know, they're making a dystopia where paperwork is magic. Why? There's a difference between reality norming and just intentionally torturing the existence of reality itself. And we have well past that point with paperwork magic. Oh. There are lines, man. There are lines. But yeah, if you guys haven't, there's a link below. Next week, we'll finish this off and see just what the other not traditions in the technocracy are, because Generation X, crazy cyborgs who are also incredibly into treating tech as nice, and they're basically mechanicists, but not allowed to be explicit. And the New World Order, who is exactly what you think they are, but are also the meme lords. Yeah. Oh my God. So yeah, again, links below. Hit up the video. The Burger Krieg made a really fun video, and I can't wait to see more. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.